And we'll start with public comment. Is anyone here for public comment? I hear no one. Okay. So consider approval of the meeting minutes from February 18th. And
Who's on the?
oh, sorry.
Courtney is with Center and Vanderbilt.
Better and better. Yeah, sorry. And then Louisa.
Me from the library. I'm just going to share a PowerPoint. So
Louise is doing
got it.
a presentation on digital navigation, and Stacy Ludden is the consultant
Okay.
hired to do the market
I
communication. She will come under my report.
thank you.
All right. So no public comment, and now considering the approval of the minutes from February 18th, 2025.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, all in favor? Sylvia.
Oh.
Sorry, you have to.
I was.
No, that's right. You have to speak up so the meeting. You're a court person. Yeah, no nonverbal communication. So all of that, everyone approved. Any opposed? Okay. Introduction to Q&A. Stacy Ledden. Okay, consultant for the marketing and communication strategy. Okay, that's your next.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm Stacy Ledden. I am helping the district in communications and marketing assessment currently. And so I'm here to share a little bit about the work that we're doing. And again, very well to be here in this beautiful space. So I worked for 15 years at NEB Libraries, the public library system for Adams County. I started there in 2008 as a writer in their first communications department. So before they rebranded as Anythink, they had never had a communications department before. It was one woman who was running the show, and my predecessor, when he was hired to form the team that would launch the Anythink brand, he hired a writer and a graphic designer, and I was that writer, and so got to be a part of the team that helped to breathe life into and voice into the Anythink brand, and was a part of really that reinvention of library service that happened at Anythink. And so in my 15 years there, I oversaw the innovations department, which was responsible for all of the marketing, PR, web, social media, public art, special events. And then I also oversaw the day-to-day of the Anythink Foundation as director of strategic partnerships. So have a lot of experience building some systems from the ground up. Real also super passionate about marketing and communications, and really about how you use messaging to build meaningful connections with the community. So I have been hired to come on board for this assessment to really take a look at, you're at such a unique moment in time, this organization, a transitional time. So you're just becoming a district, just over a year ago. Also being at the end of your strategic plan, and sort of that time in between of we're wrapping things up, and then we're looking ahead to create that next vision. And then the communications department itself having gone through some transition over the last year or so as well. So really coming in to take a look and talk with staff. And we had a great session today. It was great session. To talk with staff about, what they're hearing from the community, and what are some of the tools that might be helpful, and meeting with the communications team, some of the partner program and outreach staff, managers, leadership, to talk about what are some of those needs, what are some of the expectations, but from kind of a big picture perspective. So I'm going to be making some recommendations on what might be some structures that could be put in place that might be helpful, but also in some things that may be helpful that could happen short term, but then also long term as well. And those recommendations will be provided to David and Jen and Maria as the leader of the communications team to inform the next communication strategy. And I'm also going to be providing a survey for you all. That's going to be coming out to you all, to have you share your expertise too. So not only as leaders of the organization, but as community members and users of the library too, people that are invested in this community. So one of the things too I wanted to offer is that I will have, you know, it's 10 questions in the survey that's going to be going out tomorrow, I believe, hoping to have the answers back by April 4th. If possible. And then all of the information is going to be synthesized again into the report and recommendations that will be provided to David. Also, there's an opportunity, as you're going through it, you'd like to schedule a one-on-one conversation, you can always reach out to me and we can talk as well.
These are the questions we saw. Or is that a different survey?
No, that survey is the community survey. This is one focused entirely on the marketing and communications strategic plan. So we talked about it leading up to the district. And I think in 2023, we were talking about, can we get a communications plan together? That time we thought we don't have any staffing yet. And then we hired staffing in 2024. And we had an intention of bringing back a strategy to you in the first quarter of 2024. We've struggled really. I don't know another way to put it with the staffing in that department, and it really has struggled in part with the expectations that are upon a brand new communications and marketing staff that now is basically 2 people. One of whom has been here for 3 months, and one of whom has been here for 15 months. So the idea was to bring in some outside help to build out the strategy. In the end, we'll bring the strategy back to you guys for approval and to read and provide feedback. That's probably more like June. Stacy's planning on wrapping up her work in April, doing, I think, 8 focus groups with a lot of different staff involved in programming. I don't know how many total staff are coming to the table, but it's close to 30 maybe that are involved in various focus groups to provide input on and feedback about what we might be able to do better and what some of the levels expectations are. I'm very curious to hear what your all's expectations are. I mean, we've heard various times through the past year and a half, like, why can't we do this or can we do this? And I think all of them are great ideas. I just, it's not really my area of expertise, and I'm not really, I can look up at the cost of doing all of them and I'm thinking, like, is that the right lever to pull, or is there something better to choose from? So Stacy, I've known Stacy since 2008 at least. Yeah. And it was a nice fit for us. Anything, if you don't know the story, and probably if you were not in libraries, you don't know the story, but Adams County was I think Denver Post actually covered it as the worst library in the state of Colorado. They formed a district, and I think by 2012 were awarded, wasn't it 12,
It
2012?
was actually 10.
2010.
So we launched the brand, Anything brand in 2009. And just to give you a little bit of background context on Anything, just like David said, we were the worst funded library system in the state of Colorado for over 50 years. And the libraries were in bad shape. They were dingy, dusty, dark spaces, and people were going to other places. They were coming to Boulder, they were going to Broomfield, they were going down to Denver to utilize library services. So they were underutilized, and it took 3 times for the system to go to the voters asking for a mill levy increase. The 3rd time, they were going to have to close the Pearl-Mac Library in North Denver. So the messaging had really changed from support our libraries to save our libraries. And because there was a big election year, and because of really amazing grassroots activism and folks getting out there for their local libraries, they did pass a mill levy increase in 2006. The former director, PMC Wayne Smith, who's an absolute visionary, came on board in 2007, and they had a building plan. We built 4 new libraries and renovated 3. But before that happened, she really had the foresight to say, okay, what's our why? What kind of library do we want to be? Let's think about libraries of the future versus just building the buildings. And they created what we call an experience model. So everything they do at Anything is about the customer experience, like, the way the spaces are designed, hospitality, the program's very interactive, similar to a lot of the programming here. And they needed a brand that better represented that. And so that's how they became Anything and launched in 2009. And again, I was a part of that team that helped launch the brand. we received the National Medal for Museum and Library Service in 2010. So just the year after, and then John Cotton Dana Award for Outstanding Public Relations in 2011. So, and people started identifying themselves as any thinkers.
Right.
You know, the brand worked, and I've had the opportunity, the honor to travel all over the world, talking with folks about innovation in libraries and, creative thinking and branding and organizational culture. And, so very excited to be working with you all and kind of tap into that. I mean, just talking with the staff today, so many great ideas, so much passion. It's just a matter of kind of having somebody take a look at all that and say, okay, what are some of those steps to get us where we need to go? And, you know, it's organizational change is so fascinating, right? So much opportunity, but really looking at some of those systems that, you know, there's systems that carry over, and this is a new space, and where do you want to go next? And so how can we create those messaging and the support to help you get there?
You mentioned early on, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the energy in this topic. You mentioned tools. And so I just wanted to have a sense of, when you talk about tools, what kind of tools?
That's my contemplate. Wait,
Well, it was just, it may be related to employees and the meeting, but, you know, to give them more tools to blah, 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 is what I think I heard you say.
I'm trying to think of what the context is. So, so it may, I'm trying to think of what the context was. So,
Well, just give us some examples of like how some of the outcomes of receiving all this information.
Yeah.
Then what does it look like?
what does it look like? Yeah.
What might David see, I guess, because,
Right.
well, we'll see what he shares with us.
So I think it's going to be a mix of like high level philosophical recommendations and then again, like some of those tangible things. So for instance, you know, like the way that information gets from staff to the communications team and then out into the world, right? There are some old ways of those systems and the tools that are used to do that, that you probably could take out a couple steps so that things aren't touched as much, that can be a little bit more efficient. And so people can focus on some different things in their job than touching these things multiple times. So that's kind of an example of maybe some tool recommendations of things that project management tools or things like that. So I think philosophical systems tools, and maybe some of those physical tools as well, that really want to take a look at the feedback that we get from everybody to really see what are the priorities. Because that's the other thing too, is that there are 2 people on that staff right now, right? And a big organization. And so there may be things also that you need to outsource or consider outsourcing, and really want to get the feedback from everybody.
Mhm.
Take a look at a whole of what's rising to the top, where are those pain points, or where are those opportunities for us to be connecting with our community in a more in a stronger way now, that could actually take just a little shift.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
I don't know. That
Yeah,
will answer
so-
your question.
I mean,
Yeah.
for a little bit of background, and this was probably the most complicated part about the transition, is that the city didn't have a marketing plan. The city, felt that the brand told its own story. And they laughed at us when we went to ask for money for marketing. I mean, I think in the end, we wound up securing roughly $40,000 a year for a marketing budget for the library before shifting over. The master plan, the 2018 master plan calls out for a best practice of roughly 3% of the budget goes into marketing and communications, which we're not nearly there yet, but that's not necessarily even our goal is to get just to 3%, but it's trying to understand in terms of best practice, what is the capacity that we need to build toward. And so we do have positions right now. We have a vacant position in the marketing communications department. And it's really just, there are so many different levers to pull, right? Like, so social media, we have a distributed social media plan because the city didn't really have one. There must be at least 9 or 10 people who contribute to social media, and no person who is is pulling, who's the puppeteer, right? So a lot of the work that our marketing communications team inherited when they got here was really it's a staff-driven process, and that's great. I mean, that part of it is, but I think there are some efficiencies that can be had in that staff-driven process. You know, the program guide, which I think most of you have all seen, and some of you have even commented that you liked it. There are probably 30 people involved in putting that together, and it's again staff-driven. So the staff enter all of their data into a software program, which is how we do the calendaring system. The communications team downloads all of that data, they re-edit it, they send it back out to them for double checking, then it comes back to another team to redesign. Things like that are just probably not the most effective way that we could be doing this. And so what it's meant for the people who have been in the marketing communications team for us currently, Maria and Samantha, there is no end to work to be done. They are constantly reactive and scrambling, and there is no time ever to stop and think like, should we put this on social media? It's just like, should we take out an ad? Should we boost this with Facebook ads? You know, the idea of sending out a mailer is like, we could contract with the company to do it, but you know, what do we put in the mailer? Those kind of things, we have not had any streamlined effort to look at it as a whole, to even talk about what it is we do, what is the library does in the community. We've begun having conversations about it internally in the organization, and it's fascinating to hear what people think the library does, and remarkably consistent. But I'd say 90% of our marketing and communications focuses around one thing of the 7 things that staff say we do. And it's not even unanimous that everyone thinks that programming is a key component of what the library does, right? Like, I'd say more than half believe that is a key component of what the library does, but it's not on par with at least 3 or 4 other things. It'll be interesting to see. I'm very curious. I hope you'll have time to fill out the survey. It's not complicated. The questions I think are compelling. Some of them can be answered with one word. Some of them you could write a thesis on probably. And so I hopefully that you would have the time to take to give it some thought and provide some feedback, because we do intend to incorporate all the feedback that we get into how processes to make the marketing and communications work.
Did you think about surveying anyone from city government?
No. You mean,
Either electeds or administration?
you know, we might come to that, but no, we haven't, not for developing the strategy. We did not.
Yeah, or just, I don't know what the questions look like, but
Well, some of the questions that are in the survey that are going out do feed back into informing those, you know, what are the things that the library does and what do we need to better. We've heard from the community repeatedly in the past 2 plans, 2007 and 2018, that it's one of their top priorities. They would like to have more marketing and communications from the library. Now that we have the capacity to do it, I think we need to think about what it is we're putting out there. And you know, I don't know. I'm not being critical of the program that we have, but it's like, if you open up the program guide that we currently have, and that was the question I put to staff, is like, read this document and tell me what it is we do. Like, what do you think we do if all you had was this document, and it's, you know, Leaf, Collage, and Go Club are on par with Storytime. It doesn't make any sense. It's very difficult to understand what it is that is the focus of the library and our role in the community if you just look at the program guide and most of the stuff that we put out. I mean, one book is a more concentrated effort, and it's like about a book. Get it? It's about a book club. It's about community coming together. That all makes sense. That's more in line, I think, with what we do. But we do have a lot of collateral that we put out there that it lacks the thread that ties some of these things together, and certainly doesn't encompass the work that I believe the community probably thinks is what the library does. Right? It's more like it's just a staff-driven process that it's grown up over years.
And actually, that is a great lead into the branding pyramid that we just shared with everybody. I wanted to share this with all of you because I'm sharing it in the focus groups with all of the staff. And it's really a kind of like a philosophical pillar to the work that I do. And so I think it gives some context to how the questions are written that you'll get, and sort of my approach to marketing. And so the branding pyramid, this is something that was introduced to us as we were creating the Anythink brand by Ricochet Ideas, which was the company that we had worked with. However, as a branding tool, we actually used this across the organization when I was at anything. So it informed the way our spaces are designed, our hospitality, thinking about our programming, as well as our messaging. And even small businesses, entrepreneurs, when I'm talking with them about their marketing, I always kind of reference this. So wanted to share with you so we all have this shared language and kind of lens. But it's based on this concept of features, benefits, and emotional space. And so features are really the stuff. We have books, we've got DVDs, we have classes, we have staff, we have resources we can print. It's all of those products and services that you offer. The benefits are like, how does this impact your life? So you come to the library, you go to story time with your child, you get help with your resume. But really what we're always striving for is that emotional connection, that top of the pyramid. How does it make people feel? How do they feel when they walk into this library? Do they feel welcome? Do they feel connected? When they engage with us online, do they feel smart? Are they inspired? Do they feel safe? So really, when it comes to building loyalty, when it comes to helping people fall in love with the library, when it comes to them saying, oh my gosh, going home, telling their neighbor, you would not believe what happened today. You would not believe what I saw. And word of mouth came up so much today. And I think it really reiterated that emotional connection. And really, there have been so many studies done, from awareness funding, over and over again, that really is transformational experiences that are the reasons that people vote for library, fund libraries, come back to the libraries. Those transformational experiences don't actually have to happen to them. They can hear about it in a news story from a neighbor, and it builds that affinity. And so really wanting to think about how in our communications and how we communicate, where we communicate, why, like what's the action we want people to take through our messaging? Is it just impact? Is it understanding impact? Is it affinity? Do we want them to come to the space? Do we want them to come to the program? Really focusing on how do we make people. And so I use a lot of that language and sort of that lens of, instead of, people are not always aware of all the features that may be offered in the library. But we're going to bring them in by talking about how their lives are impacted and how we can help them be in a sense, be in a place that they belong and really tap into that emotional space. So always use that kind of as my guiding light. You'll see that in the way the questions are written and some of the conversations and maybe some of the recommendations that come out as well. So just wanted to share that with you because everybody's getting that context too. So do you have any questions or?
At the end of our 5 minutes, if, anybody, I please fill out the survey. There's especially, I know some of you are experts at this stuff, and so your input would be pretty helpful, I think.
It will be in your inbox tomorrow. You have until April 4th to get back to us, but obviously if you can't make it by April 4th, still send it in. It'd be interesting to have.
Do you think emotional connection? I mean, I haven't heard David talk about an emotional connection of visitors,
It's true.
and so I'm just curious about how, I don't know, how that's
It's
gonna.
probably like why we're all volunteering here to be
Yeah.
here because we have an emotional connection to the
Yeah, but I
library.
guess, yeah. So I didn't think that was lacking.
Well, I
Or
don't think
just-
we've ever tried to curate it though, it's been all our own individual sort of
Yeah,
experiences.
I don't know. It's
Maybe David.
maybe in subtle ways. I mean, if you look at any of the signage we have, the signage walking out the door, I don't know what else it is, but an emotional connection. When I speak a lot to different groups, I spoke today, it's like the emotional connection is there for everyone. Like, so this is the part that's I don't know that we agree or disagree on it. The branding for public libraries is strong. It has nothing to do with your relationship to the public library. Now, it could be the experience you had when you were 6 years old and walked in for the very first time and got a library card. So that branding is strong. The difficulty is we have a harder and harder time finding the mind share of a very busy public, which is drawn in a lot of different ways. And so I think it's important that we reiterate the key messages back to the public, which is already their emotional connection. They have an emotional connection to us. Right now, our advertising sucks. Like it ain't good. We're not doing much of a support message. We say, can you come to this program? And that's not building an emotional connection because, usage is important. And certainly it's vital for us in terms of the operational efficiency of the organization and everything we simply do. But the support that we experience in the community, we're not winning an election every year, but the people that drive by the library with their out-of-town guests and say, that's my public library, and they've never been in the last 10 years, are as important as the person who comes here every single day. And for that person who drives by and says, that's my public library, it's the emotional connection. They want to show that as a community, we value education, we value community public gathering spaces. All of these things matter to them. So I feel like I do nothing but talk about the emotional connection. And I feel like, when I go and talk to public groups, like all I hear back from them in questions is the emotional connection, right? They want to know about it. Boulder reads, they want to know about what are we doing to share libraries, books with communities that have banned the book. I mean, these are the questions that I got today, right? It's the same almost every place I go. Every time you speak, the connection that people have emotionally to the public library, whether they come here or not, it's not important. Whether they like to read or not is not necessarily important. They have to find that affinity that's important for their community. And that is the support message.
All right.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, I mean, we can go, I could take us off. Yeah.
6 minutes.
Well,
I mean, Casey, I'm glad to be in conversation. I think we're at a key moment in the country for people hungry for connection and community.
Yes.
I think we are the community of Boulder. I think that is what we physically represent, that we're in 4 locations. We're a space that people come in and out of, all ages in and out of that. And I think that's what we've got to build on. It is an emotional thing, but it is a community thing. And there's an awful lot of people who live here now who don't feel part of a community because they're too new or they're on the outskirts. And we just expanded the district to, do the people in Sans Souci know they're part of the district? They're paying the tax. Do they know that they can come here and get a meeting room? I don't know. So to me, that's kind of the work here when you're like, if Adams County was the thing, anything.
Yeah.
We might be any community, we might be the community, but that's kind of what brings us all in it. And that was the amazing thing last week when we were here. A year ago, we had 2 vacancies to be on this board, and Annie and I filled them, and there were 13 people who applied. Sam is leaving in May. He had 37 amazing people who applied.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It was kind of mind-boggling going through 240 pages of resumes. That's the energy that wants to be involved in
Right.
in whatever this is.
Those are all people willing to sign up for 5 years.
mhm.
We may not get people at public comment, but we.
We had 3 people show up at our annual budget meeting, so okay. Please,
Thank you, Stacy.
please also, if you feel like if you want more, you can schedule one-on-ones with Stacy. So I would encourage you to do that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
We're excited. So our next Luis
Yeah.
Fordyce,
Uh-huh.
correct?
Yeah.
Have you spoken before?
I
to
have
this board?
spoken for the EDI, as a former co-chair for the EDI team.
Okay.
I want to say in your district.
Yeah, it was 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're in.
This was here.
I think we had pinata that night, so I
Okay.
remember the food we had.
Really?
Why is that?
Yeah, remember it's a huge group of people here.
Yeah.
Tech question.
Um,
Presenting on digital navigation. Cannot get it just to do the full thing on Zoom.
So Louise is newly minted as in 2024 as she oversees the digital navigation program, which is a grant funded program that we've been running for a couple of years. Our program, again, just going back to community, it's like there are a lot of libraries that get the same grant that we did. took off in exceptional ways beyond most libraries have experienced. And so this year we now have two digital navigators. In addition to the other, we have now somebody that does it in Spanish as well. And the program is just growing, but I asked Louise to come and do a brief presentation just for the board because it's probably a program that you've never even heard of. And if you don't have, entry-level digital needs, you would never think to call, but it is a vibrant program. They meet here, I think, 6 days a week and have appointments, and he's just going to give us a breakdown on it.
I am.
Before you start, so in the organization, is she under like Kate's?
Oh,
Or you have your own pillar? Yeah.
Because most of that. I'm in the public services department.
Okay.
I'm in the patron services team.
Okay,
We were offered this program it was sort of an indirect connection through Boulder Reads. Boulder Reads had worked with the Learning Source, which is an adult education organization in Colorado. And so that was their contact at Boulder Library. They literally reached out to us in September 2023 and say, hey, we've got this funding. Do you want a digital navigator? And everybody here is like, we don't have capacity for that. We're going to becoming a district. We can wait. And then there were a couple of us who are like, well, maybe we can manage to do that without anything formal. So for the first year of the pilot, we were involved me and another colleague, Meredith, were involved in the interviewing for a digital navigator. This is somebody coming back into the workforce. So the partnership is AmeriCorps. It's Serve Colorado is the funding, but they're under an AmeriCorps contract, and the Learning Source is the grant holder. There is a similar program happening at Loveland Public Library, and they are the grant holders. So we are the third party in this, which is great because we have digital navigators to offer to the community without having to we haven't had to make a big investment up front. We've been able to test to see, we think that the patron services team thought the community definitely needed it. We needed it. We can help people for 10 to 15 minutes. We have recurring patrons of all ages coming who want help again with Excel, or how do I get into my phone, or how do I do this? And in 10 minutes, you can't really build their skill. And each time they're getting a different person helping them because it's whoever's we're in a team of 15. So I think the anecdotal evidence was that we knew that the public would like one-to-one help, but we didn't have a way to deliver it with our existing staff model. And obviously we had fewer staff. That team was 10 people and now it's 16. So we took a leap in McClellan. David took a leap that the patron services team was the site supervisor. Meredith was the support site supervisor, that we would somehow help the digital navigator in this new pilot, this new land, and we would come up with a way to deliver the services. We tried drop-in. Drop-in was not very successful, and it was competing with the library has volunteers that do drop-in tech help at Meadows and at Maine on Saturdays, and those are 15-minute appointments. People sign up, get their quick help, and leave. They might come back the following week, but they come up when it's it's literally drop-in. It didn't work well for us with drop-in because if there isn't somebody dropping in afterwards, then the person wants to stay. And it didn't give the navigator a chance to think, okay, what help are you looking for? Let me do some research. The range of questions for this program is so extensive. So the model, this is a national model. Colorado, Ohio are the kind of front runners in terms of having the most digital navigators currently in the nation. There's a national, I've got some links at the end, there's the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. So the big push is to help people who have reduced access learn the skills so they can be active participants in our digital world. Interestingly, as this program has gone on, we're getting different kinds of questions. We're having a lot of people now coming and saying, here's my smartphone. My doctor says I need an app to get to my portal. The digital navigator saying, I can't see your portal and I'm not here to give you medical advice, but I can help you download the app. I can help you set up your Face ID. There are so many things that people need to do, which involve the next level of tech that they didn't know about. The other big use for this program is someone who has, we are quite a wealthy community in some parts. They have a laptop of, any range of laptop. They have 7,000 emails in their inbox. They have 100 tabs open. The laptop isn't working. And so it really, some of it is very basic, just helping someone have the confidence to manage their machine. What do they want to do? There's been a huge increase in senior citizens in our community learning how to archive their email. Get on a Zoom call. Well, how do I then make the link work? So some of it, this is generally not high level, but it's the repeat interactions. We have 2 digital navigators this year. The first year we had Cheryl Kahikina, and she has come back for a second year of service. In the previous slide, I had the dates. It's a slightly strange setup because it's not annual, and that makes it difficult for us. We started in November, and then her term ran till October, but the second person's term started in September, so there's an overlap. Hopefully, if we're offered the funding again for the 3rd year of the pilot, they're applying right now, the grant holder, we can have 2 digital navigators start at the same time, delivering the same service. So we now have 50 hours of this program. The first year we had 40. I wouldn't say that, to be clear, that's not 40 appointments a week. You know, there's a huge amount of back end. They manage all their calendars. They, people make an appointment, then they'll call and cancel and reschedule. So that's that admin piece. But the bottom line with digital navigators is that they're at the digital skill piece. The goal of the philosophy of it is that if you increase people's digital skills, then more people are included digitally, and then you get to greater digital equity. Like any kind of equity, I don't think we're ever going to get to 100% digital equity because everything is moving really fast, but it's really giving our patrons who need longer periods of help, who want to build a relationship. I've been really impressed, especially with our first digital navigator. She has really superb customer service skills, and her patience really, I repeatedly say to her, what you're doing is really hard. Think of helping the elderly relative. And then a lot of them come with password books, and then you've got that whole where they've been doing some very basic privacy and security, and recommend you don't have it all written down, and it's not, so there's that. So it's patron driven. What does the patron want help with? We are now at capacity. Really, they're pretty booked up. If you want a digital navigator appointment, you're probably going to have to wait a couple of weeks, and the people want the help yesterday. So we're navigating that now with my supervisor, Thomas, and I are helping the digital navigators come up with some guidelines. How about 6 consecutive sessions for a particular skill, and then take a break, give someone else a chance and come back. So I have one more.
How many slides do you have to go?
I don't have very many.
I wanted to ask you some questions.
Yes, you can, and
But go ahead.
I just wanted to show you what it looks like, because if you're heading up to see David, you'll see the area. It's outside the Arapaho room. It's that sort of quieter area off to the side. We did try appointments in rooms. That again takes the room from the public. Also, isn't necessarily potentially not always a safe, environment with the door shut with a total stranger doing an appointment. So it is all out in public space. They have to have the AmeriCorps serving sign. They have to have prohibitive activities up. They have to wear AmeriCorps gear, shirts when they're delivering service. There are some contractual things that we have with them that we. It's interesting. So the appointments, they offer 30 to 45 minutes. Everybody wants 45 minutes. They can have 1 appointment a week. I'd say people probably average coming in every couple of weeks. People graduate themselves out if they're, or then they come back to learn a new skill. So they are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. As of the beginning of this month, we just started rolling out appointments at other locations. So the digital navigators are rotating. Let me see if I can get this right for you. Wednesdays, Cheryl is at Reynolds, and Jaime is in Nobo doing bilingual appointments at Nobo. And then the alternate week, Cheryl's at Meadows. We had saved that spot for Gun Barrel. Now that's being pushed back. I'm going to look at the data 6 weeks in and see if there are enough appointments to have Jaime doing bilingual appointments at Nobo every week. I have to check with the manager. So yeah, I think that's it for me. Just that I've got a couple of highlights. There's been a huge, there is a strong, over 75-year-old take up for this service, but
Yeah.
it's not just who's coming. It really does span. We have, a couple of really great success stories. There's Comcast grants that goes with this for the Learning Source, which had a limited number of computers last year that people doing Digital Navigator appointments could work with the Digital Navigator for X number of sessions and at the end leave with the computer. We have one of the patrons who took advantage of that service, was low income eligible, got a job at CU, and then got into supportive housing. We have somebody else who went through the whole housing process, who'd been unhoused for 14 years and is now housed. And the 90 minutes a day at the public library to do that process was simply not enough. And they were literally here day after day after day for weeks and weeks at the high top. But they got there now in housing. So there's some really, those are kind of big impact. There are smaller impact with people coming in and sending print jobs from their laptop and going and releasing them. And they no longer need a library staffer to help them do that every single time because they have the confidence. So I think the confidence building and you were saying about the community, it is really touching lives from people who haven't felt confident to get help. And so that's the really good piece about it. I'll keep this in the slides. The Learning Source is the organization we're partnering with. CDLE were major funders for this for the first 2 years. I don't know if they will be in a position to fund it. And then there are a lot of great resources, digital navigation on the National Alliance for Digital Inclusion. And feel free to, my email's in the directory. Feel free to email me if you have questions after the fact. But yes, so we're in the second year of the pilot, and so far the data, I have fun data for you. They have the first trimester with having 2 of them, that was 90 appointments between September and the end of November, and we're kind of on track for 90 in the last trimester, and that's not including people working to the laptop eligible. We have about 25 laptops this year, but again, it's back to that promotion thing. We can't promote something that's very limited. So but overall, it's been a really impactful program. And the flip side of the other side of the coin is that the staff I work with really feel empowered to make the call as to, okay, this is somebody I've worked with over 3 or 4 weeks, and they need more. And then now we have a location for them all. So we've also been really lucky with the digital navigators that we were involved a little in the hiring, but they don't, it's the Learning Source that's the program manager.
How much does this program cost? What's the, and I'm just particularly interested in like that granting, like.
For us?
Yeah.
For us, nothing. Well,
Me.
Louise was already a 3/4 time employee, and we've
Full-time to manage.
Louise now full-time in order to manage that program. So there was a slight difference, but we had planned on making that change.
So the grant amount, what is the,
So I don't have that. So the grant is from we have the digital navigators. They submit a weekly timesheet. I approve the timesheet. They're paid by it's their numerical living. So we are not involved at this stage with that.
do we want to be more involved? I mean, do we want more funding for this?
More funding?
Yeah, I mean, it would come to the library? I mean, I just think.
In
about
the future?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, would we want to grow it, I guess, Mike?
Yeah, I don't think the program is slowing down. I mean, we've seen just increased numbers this year. Now that we have 2 navigators, and Jaime's great. He's having Spanish language proficiency is
Yeah.
just a benefit to us as well. So I don't know where the program goes. It's like a lot of those things where we're doing some stuff that's like, what's the upper limit of the capacity? We don't want to build a program that caters to 100 people and costs a lot of money. But I think we have expanded the reach, and there's a lot of new people that come in for appointments as well. And some people, I mean, you stress the people that come for repeat appointments, and there are a number of them. Those are the ones we remember, but there are a lot of people who come in and get what they need to have done in an appointment, and then they move on and they're better, more proficient.
Or they come back in a month or so. I think the challenging piece from a big picture thinking is that if we want to provide equitable services, we would want to offer this in all locations. And then, so Denver has a program that they started during COVID with a different kind of grant. It wasn't from the state. I'm not sure
Mhm.
if it was a federal relief grant. And that funding ran out for them early last 2024. So I've been reaching out to them to sort of find out, okay, how did they go from that to what they have now? They have 6 full-time digital navigators, and each of them works in 5 different locations, including housing associations and things. But they're very much targeting where their digital navigators are going.
Mhm.
The person who set that program up has gone to work for the National Alliance for Digital Inclusion. I feel they could be a good resource for us to just look at strategically. And then I've also got a meeting coming up with Eric Rock at Loveland Library, because they are being what the learning source is for us. They are doing both. Obviously, we're in uncertain times with funding. And even though I'm being told serve Colorado, oh yes, we're fine. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
but AmeriCorps is federal. And yeah, I have yet to see. I hope that the sort of best case scenario for the Boulder Public Library District is that we can gather more data, grow the program incrementally another year, look at how it's being taken up, other locations that need it more, and actually have some statistics for that. We didn't have enough people to do that last year.
I just think, with the tech firms, I'm just thinking about our applicant pool, right? And all these firms that I had forgotten were in the area, or people working, remotely with the firm. It just seems like a great private investment, just a donation to the foundation or directly to the library to fund something like this. And Google and others. I mean, it just seems, that's why I just wondered if that's in your vision or.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could talk about that. I mean, we are in a very, again, I mean, Google did a lot of community partner building back,
Yeah.
trying to get the building here. And then it all kind of,
Yeah. And not just them, but I mean, there's the smaller ones. I mean, whatever.
so again, I'm talking to, the California offices, and we're trying to build about some partnerships with Google, which is back in the business of, I don't know, I think community building, right? They want to do some,
Yeah.
whether it's just to repair their image or not. At this point, we're looking at some memorandums and
Yeah.
some agreements, and mostly it seems like they're willing to offer a lot of stuff for free.
Yeah.
So they're not offering money, but they're offering a lot of programs that are around, some to do with digital inclusion, some to do with
Yeah.
workforce development. So yeah.
I just think that there's a lot of potential with this program, and I just wonder.
Well, and the Learning Source partnered with Comcast, and CDLE partnered with Comcast this year, and they're refurbished laptops this time around. But that is a huge access point. Denver Public Library during the pandemic worked with PCs for People. You literally had to sit down one appointment and you walked away with your laptop. Obviously, that would be the least barrier option. It would be really great to have a very, low barrier with limited supply. But it is showing that, obviously you can do so much more if you've got your own technology, and some things you really can't do on a phone.
Yeah.
Like housing applications and things are really difficult.
I just think about the Apple Store. They must love the fact that you have this.
Online with social security.
That's what I was gonna ask.
There can be more. And I also think the odds are AmeriCorps will get wiped out.
Yeah.
So, but all of this, and then we have a new internet service coming in Boulder and Allo, right? It's gonna
Okay.
build out the broadband and have competition.
Mhm.
They could be an
Yeah.
entity to check in with.
And there is that state, or it it was under the other administration, the whole broadband, reach.
Yes, affordable.
And it
broadband
probably
access.
has gone away.
And the funding for that ended in April.
Uh-huh.
The National Alliance for Digital Inclusion is a huge advocate and lobbying for more funding. I'm not sure where that is right now. At the end of last year, they were doing a lot of advocacy.
Do you keep stats on who the customer is and where they come
So-
from?
This is where it's tricky. This is where it'd be 100% easier if it was 100% in-house, because then I could. So I have access to view the information, but the view information is, I can do X number of appointments a month. But our digital navigators, because we're a library and with the library privacy, they might put a first name, but they're not keeping any demographics.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. But interested, like eyeballing it, Benita, I would say 60% of the program is reaching local seniors. We have significant number coming just from across the tower block, just across the street and telling their friends. And we have the Age Well Center has one tech appointment a day and there are waiting lists. So Cheryl went up there and we've got a lot of people in through the door early on in the program. And so there's definitely a lot of word of mouth for it. We haven't gone to retirement homes and things. I think there would be a big pull for it. But again,
Did you say you had 90 appointments September through November?
yeah.
And is that capacity with the current staffing?
The capacity, I think. Thinking of the hours. So Jaime is half-time. He's here from 1 to 5:30. Realistically, a 45-minute appointment is actually an hour by the time you've done that, you've got the time to set up for the next one. So if he was really doing 4 appointments a day and 16 a week, I think that's probably unrealistic. I think it's probably more like 8 to 10.
Because they have back end stuff to be doing.
But yes, they have to, I mean, I have a flyer here, just so basically the public, what we are handing out to the public on what's on our website and what's in, through the website, it's on the digital board as you come in. And we have business cards, so you contact the navigators directly. Like that is separate from our library service. They are reaching out to the person to make the appointment. It's an Google voicemail or a text or an email. Obviously, most of it is Google voicemail and text because many of the people seeking the service are not merely emailing. So the capacity very, very much fluctuates. When we got later in December, then suddenly, and weather impacts it. Flu impact, there are things. So the average is tricky. I'm hoping that this summer I can compare with last summer. Even though it's 2 people, it's 50 hours of time as opposed to 40 hours of time. Because we're really now gathering data that is meaningful. The first year we were just trying to make it happen. So.
Just trying to understand if demand is exceeding capacity, if we run out of AmeriCorps money.
Right.
Have other.
Yes, I mean, that would also be a very good question for Thomas Samblene, who's the new main library manager, who comes from has a strong background from previous libraries with working with community partners and the pluses and minuses of that. Like some of the things with the data, if I was getting the data, I could. Like a lot of it currently is anecdotal, just with the partner agreement. But anecdotally, the data is good. So I am working to this year get like firmer data, so then we'd have something to base, oncoming plans.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to dig into it when we begin doing the strategic planning again in 2026, because, there is a digital divide, right? There still remains a digital divide. It is, it profoundly impacts mostly low income families, seniors to a lesser extent. But I mean, I think it is one of the proudest accomplishments of public libraries, without a doubt, is the free public computing. That idea that kind of emerged in the 90s and had, money from the Bill Gates Foundation enabled a whole bunch of people to get access to the internet. But, 20 years ago, I had in the library I was in, I think 4 full-time staff members. We were teaching classes around the clock, and something like 400 or 500 people going through software classes and email classes a week. I mean, we had a major lab. All the classes were fully booked. There was a waiting list. So the equation at that time was very different than what the equation is right now. I mean, even 10 years ago in Boulder, the access to high-speed internet in the household was about, I think, 88%. Today it's 97%. In the 2020 census, it was 93%. So there is this kind of ubiquity, I think, to the technology, which we're seeing now, some of the last remnants of it. I don't know if it's a growth industry, right? So public computing, which again, I can't say enough about it. And it was a big part of my career was like figuring out how do we provide this for the public for free? Because Steve Jobs wasn't thinking about it and Bill Gates really wasn't thinking about it. Public libraries were trying to think of how do we provide all these really cool stuff for free. And it was a monumental effort, but really over the last decade, we've only seen a decline in usage and requirements for public access. I mean, from 2020 to today, we used to have, I think, 80 public computers, maybe 70 something public computers. We had 30 some here. We now have 9. And they're, well, on the weekends they do fill up, but
Mhm.
in most cases, the occupancy rate's about 50%.
And I think too, we have a lot of people who have the skills, but just it's much easier to print from public computer than from your device. It's like three fewer
Yeah,
steps.
they come in and
It's going to do that, but and it's great that Boulder has so much high-speed internet, but the library district is for a much bigger area, and I'm somebody who lives up the canyon, so there are many patches where there's barely any internet, there's not cell service, so the library is more crucial as a hub for the access. There are lots of people who literally come down here for the Wi-Fi, not necessarily for the public computer, for the Wi-Fi. So I think that role is
I just don't know if it's a growth industry. I guess what I'm saying. I don't know if it's an area where we are going to grow any further. I think there are areas of internet and technology, things like the laser cutter. Try to get an appointment on the laser cutter, right? That's like good luck. So there are technology aspects that are doing it. In terms of public computing, it is probably not as critical of a component for public libraries as it was even 5 or 6 years ago. Where we see the gaps is really the affordability of access. So the affordability of having an unlimited data plan in your household when you have 4 kids, all of whom have to do their homework, you have to apply for jobs there, probably the communication from your bosses may be coming from there. There's a lot of stuff that's where the real, and we experienced that during the pandemic when the foundation and federal money funded, I think initially 400 free wireless access points in the community, and they were gone in a day, right? We could have done 3,000, but it was expensive, right? It was not, I mean, we were paying for unlimited data for wireless hotspots that people could take home. We still have some that we circulate, and there's a waiting list. It's a great thing, but it's also like, I'm not sure how affordable that is for us to do, is to continue to provide free wireless access points for everyone when it might be the responsibility of the internet service provider that's coming to Boulder that they could figure out where that last 3% is and provide them with free.
Okay,
Does anyone have any more questions? Just
Good.
feel
Thank
free
you.
to email. Yeah.
I would just observe, you made a point about a large percentage of your appointments are people 75 and older. And I do think that as a service to seniors, I don't really see that going away as I think of my own
Mhm.
diminished capacity to deal with technology as I age.
Maybe I picked 75. I could have said 70. I could have said 68. I think it's more that the speed of the newer technologies and the more efficient ways to do things, people are, and yeah, I don't want to sound ageist at all because I'm 100% not, but I think if you are not in the workforce or on a volunteer board or having to interact with Zoom, with, turning something into a PDF, those things, I have friends who are recently retired who think, oh, maybe I need a digital navigator. And I realized that because they're not doing it on a day-to-day basis, it's become a much bigger thing. So I think you're right, Sam. It's the skill building is the gap between the technology coming fast at this end and the people who are using things less frequently. But I do think the healthcare portals and, downloading an app and putting your information in and being secure with your online banking, obviously library staff, digital navigators, whoever they are, we aren't touching devices. We aren't doing that, but we can sit back and give someone the confidence to repeatedly do something and be successful. And I think that to me, that's the kind of the key benefit for the community is having people still be able to access the things they need to access without a huge amount of stress, or also the missing something. In some people's cases, it's benefits they're missing.
So that was my takeaway, David. Like, well, access may be almost ubiquitous. Help is not.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's, I
You
think,
need more as you get older.
and also if you've been living up here in a tent for a long period of time and you're getting things together again and things are going well, you also need the encouragement and mentorship and building that relationship with where you can come and say, okay, can you help me with this piece? And then people can go away. I mean, I feel like the confidence boosting, and from somebody who would be saying, okay, now I have to help the next person, it gives me great like professional satisfaction to see, okay, these people are now we are actually meeting their needs. We are matching what they are seeking to the information. So but again, it's obviously requires funding, and it also requires people who are, I mean, America is a tough gig. You're working really hard, and the financial rewards are small in terms of, so we've also been lucky to get very dedicated people who are choosing to serve us and our community. Thank you. That was a lot more than my 10 minutes.
That's all right. No, thank you. It's cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
Learn and never do. Now I know what those people are doing.
It's a great program. Yeah, I mean, the experience working with AmeriCorps has been good for me, and for decades. They're a remarkable organization and they bring good people in.
All right.
Could I just ask one question? Could it be a place for volunteers?
Yeah, we have a volunteer tech drop-in help now, and it's possible that so one of the applicants to the board has been one of our tech drop-in volunteers since 2019. He was formerly the head of innovation at Google offices here. So it's like they're getting good help, I think, when they go there, right? It's like a nice but the quality of the people who are the volunteers in that program are remarkable as well. Yeah. I don't think the program's going to go away. Honestly, I don't know that we'll be able to afford it. I don't know that AmeriCorps is going to go away, or if not, another group won't step in to fill the void. But I think we've seen a niche. It's clearly growing still. I don't know what the cap is on it. I don't think it's like exponential. It's not like the outreach program where but there is a need. I definitely think there's a need. Our program has been successful where neighboring libraries has not as well, which is also one that I think like why. I don't know exactly why our program has worked and Broomfield's was a total flop. It's hard to know.
Does Longmont have a program?
I don't know if they ever got a navigator. Maybe. I could ask.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm sorry, Doug.
No, that's okay. Just time management, and we gotta keep the train rolling down. But I'm happy to have people talk and ask questions. These are suggested times on here.
Okay.
So, so,
We may need to work on your time estimates.
yeah, aspiration.
Aspirational time.
Okay, director update, maybe.
Definitely be less than 15 minutes unless there are questions. So
Okay.
gun barrel's on target. We still haven't got a permit yet for construction, but a lot of work is happening. And that's exciting. If I don't know when I'm going to be able to, I go in every Friday afternoon and look at it. I'm tempted to call you all up and say, hey, if you're in the neighborhood on Friday afternoon, you want to come in. It looks very different than what it looked like when you guys were there.
Let us know.
But yeah, if I'm out there again this Friday afternoon, I'll plan.
Let's have the name on the door.
Do you do this every Friday?
I go out
You've-
every Friday afternoon. Yeah, I drop by just to see what progress is in. The construction crew's usually gone by the time I get there, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and you can just go in and kind of see the space. It's not, I mean, it changes every week. Like, so there are things happening now. We haven't got a permit for construction yet, but
What's the permit for then? Just the,
well, the permit ultimately is around all of the stuff having to do with plumbing and electrical.
okay, so you're doing,
You're not doing really, they've trenched for the plumbing. The trenches are there, but there's no plumbing in.
okay,
And what happens in the permitting phase is like, you get the permit is really designed so that you can be subject to inspection. And so they want to get right up to the point where inspection is coming in. So that when we get the permit, the inspectors will be in within a short period of time, can tell them where they've succeeded and failed or what they need to do differently before they actually build it. And then the inspector comes in and says, no, this should have come in over there. So that's really the object, is to be ready to go for the inspector to come in and
And on target still means midsummer.
nah, we will we will get the building probably turned over to us in midsummer. What was unique about Nobo and not typical is we got occupancy
3 hours before we open the public.
3 hours before we open the building. No, so we'll get the building will be handed over to us with an occupancy permit. And that is the point at which then we should be bringing in furniture.
AI picture, but
And so that will be another period of time where we have assembling the books and the shelves and the furniture. And there are two fairly significant things that are being designed in the space. One for children's area. And I haven't seen the final design yet, but it's like an archway to enter the children's area, which is playful, and a reading nook and stuff, similar to the nook that we have up here outside the children's area. And then the safe. So the vault will have a treatments as well. That'll be really interesting. I don't think we've seen a final design yet, but I'm really looking. Jamie Kopke will be here next month, April, for your board meeting to give you a preview of some of the work that's going on and some of the work that we expect to see probably happen in August. So I'm guessing that the opening date will be late summer, early fall. That's when I think probably the grand opening will be in the park. We are doing a number of summer reading events out there in the area, both at a couple of schools and on the grounds. We'll have something on the grounds for a big party and for summer reading. Two things I want to touch on other than that are the IMLS grant. So I'm sure you all saw, and there's, a lot of concern. IMLS is the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and the president signed an executive order that at least the way it was initially covered was like canceling IMLS. So the devil is always in the details, and with librarians, we always try to read the details. The details are that those that are not statutorily required. So statutorily required cuts are not to be made at this point. And so the state of Colorado, we receive no IMLS grants. The foundation receives no IMLS grants, no IMLS funding. The state of Colorado does receive about $3.5 million. All of those funds are statutorily required. They foresee no change in that level of funding until the next time the budget needs to be approved, which I believe is September 30th. That coincides also with the renewal of the IMLS grant in and of itself. So it's September 30th will be a date that comes around again that, if the budget obviously is not approved, then there's some damage. That $3.5 million primarily goes to staffing within the state library. That then does programs like Talking Book. So it's the ability for people who are blind or visually impaired can get books on recorded books sent to their home. They serve public school and university libraries as well in a support structure, not in terms of money, but in terms of support and ongoing education, and then prison libraries. So those are the things that primarily IMLS money funds in the state of Colorado through the state library. The last thing I want to touch on is the bomb threat that we received over the weekend. It was a swatting exercise. We suspected as much when we got the alert. It appears that it was sent to multiple addresses here within the library, and then also to a couple of other organizations in downtown Boulder. And PD did a sweep initially at around 4:30. And then subsequently at around 6 or 7 to do with the full bomb squad and dogs and the dog and SWAT members and everything else. There was nothing in the library. And so it is one of these things which was, the email was very specific about the bomb. And that I think is probably, a device that swatting has learned gets an effect when you say what the makeup of the bomb is. It said very clearly that it was in the Canyon Theater and not somewhere near the Canyon Theater. In the Canyon Theater made me initially very suspicious because there's no way to access the theater unless you have a key. You can't break into the library building and get into the theater still. Like you can't get in. So I was initially suspicious, but there was a possibility that somebody had stayed overnight in the library and didn't come out until like 4:30 or something like that. And so that was at least, we took it seriously. We followed the protocols that we have in place, which are really to notify the staff were notified, as well as, PD. And so we had PD in the building all that morning. And we got an all clear. It was sometime after 8 a.m. I can't remember when they gave an all clear. It was pretty obvious pretty quickly that the type of bomb that they had indicated that it would have had been somewhat substantial. It was kind of like the construction of a bomb that would be like the Oklahoma City bombing, Timothy McVeigh. So a lot of material.
What is the protocol when that happens? Because the city owns the building. I mean, is the city called first and then you were notified, or, I mean, how's that?
Well, the emails came directly to us. I don't know that the city got an email. I mean, they're aware of the fact that we had a bomb threat and then PD is really the first group that we call, which obviously is the city, but that's the group that comes out to respond to such incidents.
So who received the email?
It came to our Ask Us line. It came to the theater group. It came to, apparently to a couple of downtown, groups. And PD was not direct in saying whether or not they had received the email directly or not. But they knew of it as soon as we did, pretty much. They were aware. And on site.
The night?
It was around 4 a.m. Yeah.
Who's checking email?
I know.
Well, I get an alert
Oh,
on my phone. And
Which means you woke up.
well, but
Or you're up.
yeah, no, I'm not up at 4.
Okay.
You know, my phone starts sending little lights and stuff like that. I don't get that many of them. It's pretty rare that you get a 4 o'clock alarm. So yeah, it's
somebody was,
Mhm.
I guess.
What's that?
On email at 4 a.m. So you.
well, yeah. So no, then
glad.
If it was local,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, PD has people who are on 24.
So it went to the police.
Well, they were able to pick it up then. So they had somebody here pretty quickly before 4:30 and did the first sweep of the building. I didn't get here till probably 7 when I got into the building. Or I don't know, right before 7, something like that.
Was there a specific event mentioned in the threat?
No, but you know, they did not. But you know, drag queen story time. That day we do drag queen story time once a month. It is on that Saturday. They clearly referenced in the email a lot of just anger about what we were doing and lessons that we are teaching and the vulnerability of children and that kind of stuff. I think I'd rather not at this point. I mean, we may be subject to more of these, I guess is what I'm getting at. I don't really know. The JCC gets a bomb threat at least once a month. And after October, like once a week, right? Like, so you take them all seriously. You don't not take it seriously just because you think this is not serious. I mean, you take them seriously. You have to take them seriously. I didn't believe that it was going to impact the opening or the events, but there were staff start getting here at 8 o'clock. We had to ask them to not come into the building or go into the other side for a period of time. I think staff were probably a little alarmed. I mean, I think I sent an email to all staff at 9 or so by that morning to say that we had an all clear and that things were fine and that it was just it was a threatening email, mostly filled with hate.
The threats, most of the anger were related to drag queen story.
Well, we're assuming.
That's an assumption. Yeah, they did not mention drag queen story.
They didn't.
Is there a law enforcement investigation?
Is there a what?
Law enforcement investigation?
do.
Is it
So they
Boulder
have it.
police or is it the feds?
What's that?
Is it the feds or the Boulder police?
No, Boulder Police. So the Boulder Police has a special person who tracks down such things. It's unfortunate, you probably last month it was I think the kitchen had multiple bomb threats. And so PD takes them all seriously. It is as you would imagine, it is kind of an intractable string to follow. It came from an email address, but finding out who that email address is actually attached to is a long string of, and anybody can make up a Gmail address. So it came from a person that didn't identify themselves as being in Boulder or anything else like that, but it made it sound like as if they were, right next door is how they made the email sound. Just so you know, it's one of these things where, my temptation and maybe yours was to say like, we take a strong opposition and we make a big statement about drag queen story time. I think that is precisely what they're trying to do, is to get us to take a form, it's to get you to make some absurd statement about how the Browns support when they have not even really called anything out. And so as it is, I feel like we continue with what it is we're doing. Drag queen story time went off without a hitch. We had extra patrol officers going through the building that day, just in case there was something. But that's partly protocol at the PD. volunteers. We don't, before you even have to ask, and you have more people around today, they're automatically saying like, we'll do more patrols today. And we have had in the past where we've had threats about drag queen story time online. Some real, some not. We've never had more than one person show up at any particular drag queen story time hour to protest. And that's happened on several occasions, different people that do. I don't know if they're local or not, most times it's without incident. And it's just the tensions raised and the level of stress, I think, that people feel that then writing a specific threat, it strikes somebody as like, that's the right thing to do. I have no idea. Like I'm, I think we probably will get more of them. Is all I assume. We've had a number of people in the community who've complained about drag queen story time. The line is always like, I have 1,000 parents who are ready to sign a petition. And my line to them is like, please do get that petition signed and get it into me. And you should also come to a board meeting the next time to tell them, because here's when the next board meeting is, and please do come down and tell them how horrible you think this is. Like you're welcome. We value your opinion. Like that's my tactic with regard to all of them. It's like I have 500 families that are ready to come down there and drive trucks around the library. I'm like, great, come on down. Love to see you at the library.
Do we have a protocol with the police for other forms of swatting incidents? So like realistically, this is like the tamest possible form of this sort of thing. The more advanced version would be faked 911 call in the middle of the day with the aim of getting SWAT to crash through the windows when the library is full of people.
Like
Do we
what
have
happened at
we
the
have-
high school?
I mean, but like
High school just,
often you'll have protocols with the police where if they get a 911 call about an active shooter in the library, they will call the library before smashing through the windows to ask if that's actually going on.
yeah, they do. And so it's a little bit complicated, right? So this is the one, I mean, now that we're talking about it, we might as well talk about it, right? So the police want us to lock down the building. We are a public place. We can restrict people coming in, but we cannot lock down the building and restrict them leaving the building, right? So we do not fully comply with what PD would like for us to do. And they know this, but it's every single time that something like this happens, we go through it again, that we are not allowed to restrict people from leaving the building if that is their choice. We have on occasion, when this high school incident happened, we locked the building from people could not come in from the outside, which was odd. I was there at the door and like
Which,
a group of teenagers came running to the door.
Boulder.
We said, sorry, we can't let you in.
no,
Like that
incident.
seemed,
Something?
It was last May.
Oh, that one, okay.
there are
Okay.
other incidents, but again, if people come and say, I need to go, I've got an appointment, then we let them out through the door. So it's a little bit complicated. PD typically then comes in. You may have seen some of the photographs when we have these incidents, right? Like it's not pretty. There's a photograph on the front page of the Daily Camera with like 8 tattooed uniformed officers walking out with long guns. It's like, that's not really the ad that we wanted on the front page of the Daily Camera, but we've had it in the last decade where,
Should we have a written protocol?
we do have one
Okay.
inside for dealing with bomb threats. For a swatting incident, I don't know that we have. We assumed this one was a SWAT from the get-go. Or it was my assumption and the
Yeah.
person who actually, the other person I was talking to, the other staff member I was talking to.
I just wonder, I mean, because we don't yet own the building in a sense, and, I don't know.
Who owns the building is probably somewhat irrelevant here.
Yeah.
It's going to be the safety of the folks inside.
But I mean,
Regardless.
here, I mean.
This like property damage is going to be the lowest thing on the list of concerns here. So I think, this is something we could talk to the police about, but I think the immediate concern would be how do we minimize harm to people in the
Right.
library? Both a potential bad actor, but then also potentially from the police themselves trying to respond to a fake insinuation of a bad actor.
So there's no question that even if we don't own the building, we can't be in charge of what we're.
No.
We control.
There's no way we could write a protocol for what the police are gonna do what they're gonna do. They have their own thing. We have no authority or power for that, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but just what we do, I guess. Yeah.
Rick, what do you put out to the public when these things happen? Do you?
No,
Did this,
I didn't know that the daily camera was going to pick it up. Nobody from the
I
daily.
was gonna,
I was surprised when I saw it.
Is it worth putting something together in it so it's not, like, to your point, we don't need to elevate conflict around, say, drag queen story arm, but more around, this is one of the sad parts of the modern life we live in now. Individuals can do this and disrupt and blah, blah, and it's part of a culture. And we stand up to that by all the services we provide, or whatever that might be.
I guess if they
So
would,
that we're not silent on it and the public sees that we're paying attention, but we're not amplifying.
We could talk about that. My public service announcement would not have been very different than the email that I sent you, and that we are opening on time and all of our programs will continue as usual. That would have been my public service. Had the Daily Camera contacted me, that's what I would have said. I think the Daily Camera probably picked up the alert also on the police scanner and called, because the quote that they had was from the public information officer. And no one. I don't know if you've ever been involved with a police action at Boulder. They always have a fairly high up person who shows when there's more than a few officers, there's a sergeant right behind and there's a lieutenant right behind, and they set up perimeter patrol for people. And, the guy that was at the front door talking to staff was just the nicest, guy he could be. Outside of the library, a uniformed officer talking to people in the area that had, no interest, they even necessarily coming into the library. This is all before 8 a.m., but they were in the area, and so they were responding to questions about why there were so many uniformed officers. So they because we're a public building, I've seen them in action multiple times, and I guess the good news or the bad news, whichever way you want to look at it, it's like if when there is an incident, I almost never see a cop in Boulder ever. When there's an incident, there are 20 on site in minutes. And that's, if you're running a public building, that is comforting that you see such a presence that can come out at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning.
their response time even at the high school was 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Under 2 minutes. So
Yeah, it's for the main library, it's generally under 4 minutes for anything, pretty much.
do we practice like fire drills and
We have in the past, Doug. We have
be a good thing?
not for a couple of years, and it's probably going to be one of the.
Tornado drills and
That'll be on this.
no, I think just general. I mean, even my company, we have a safety protocol for fire drills and
We do as well. So,
Yeah.
and that protocol is frequently updated, and, they give an update if there's a need to go check it with, for updates. That's something that the staff who oversee that.
Yeah.
They take very seriously. It's a serious part of their job. But no, honestly, we haven't done, we've done first, shooter drills, fire drills. We've done all of that. We haven't done anything in the last 2 or 3 years.
that'd be good to think about.
I think the last time we did it was after the pandemic. We used to also do a lot of scenario planning for and we haven't done one of those in the last 3 or 4 years either. So it's probably about time.
I would suggest maybe you invite the trustees to at least know when they're happening. Maybe we'd want to participate.
Yeah, we usually do it with PD, right? So PD is the PD or the fire department. We have both had PD and the fire department here in the past for a lot of different things. And it's not always, it's good to have them back because it's not always intuitive, and they oftentimes pick up on things that we haven't really noticed before.
Yeah.
do our rules allow us to do executive sessions for any reason, or is there just a subset of reasons?
There's specific things.
Is there a public safety reason or no?
I don't know.
It's just like contracts and real estate. Oh, maybe Courtney.
But there's
Yeah, there's definitely specific things that the statute illuminates as to reasons for executive session, but and I have it in front of me, but it's purchase, acquire, lease, transfer, or sale of real estate, consulting an attorney on specific legal questions. So that's probably kind of the avenue that would go down. Confidential matters per federal or state law, security details in terms of investigations. is another category. So potentially, um, developing negotiation positions and contracts, personnel matters, and items and documents we keep separate or secret by law. So it potentially, depending on what the actual topic is that you wanted to talk about, it could go into executive session.
I mean, I don't think anything's necessary right now, but if we did see a pattern of escalation here, it might be worth us thinking about how we could have a private conversation about some of the library's security practices.
Okay. Yeah, Chris, I was almost gonna switch you to in front of David and maybe I should have done that, but, so any more questions for David and we'll move on to the Library Foundation. All right.
Okay, great. Thank you. Wanted to touch on just three totally interrelated things, passing around a press release. We're thrilled to have been able to have our board with Lanny and Sylvia as part of the board approve all of the library's grant requests this year at our last meeting. This was the most organized set of grants. We were able to approve $394,000 for the library. The biggest part of that is a 2-year request that the board approved for Boulder Writes, the functional literacy as well as creative literacy program that's going to get piloted starting this year and run for 2 years. And so there's 90,000 to get started, and there's another 100,000 committed for part of next year's granting. And you can read there the details about what was requested. Little background just about this new grant process is that David and I and our board chair Kitty and the rest of the board have been agreeing to a new process, and it worked really well in its first year from our perspective. And that was that David organized his requests with his staff going all the way back to last August 15th. And what that did was it allowed us time to raise the money and also to budget for this allocation and see how good a year we have. And then by February, be able to say, okay, we did have a great fundraising year. The markets did fine. And we're going to go ahead and approve all of these requests. And so we'll do that again this year, next August, this August 15th, with another round of requests. And this has been just really good. We'll get better and better at it. So related to that is that we did have a good year, and a big part of that was the collaboration with the library on the big gala. And I don't think I've announced to you all, some of you are on our newsletter, but we've got another smash hit author coming this year. So mark your calendars for September 18th. The name of the gala is Remarkable Night Creatures. And Shelby Van Pelt, author of Remarkably Bright Creatures, is coming in from Chicago and will be headlining. And so imagine same venue as last year, south side of the library, the atrium upstairs for the author talk with the stage. And just imagine all the decorations, turning it into the aquarium from the Pacific Northwest that those of you who've read the book know that's is what features very large, in addition to the very large Great Pacific octopus that is the anthropomorphic main character for book. But that's really cool. Netflix is in production with Sally Fields starring as Tova right now. So we've already gotten a lot of interest. It'll be the same format basically as last year. So we're able to sell sponsorships for all 33 tables. 18 are already spoken for. Thank you, Doug. As well as many others. So please be in touch soon. There's a handful of tables at every level still available for sponsorship. And of course, that's what funds next year's cycle of grants that hopefully is as successful as this year was. And then the final point is we're growing. And so we've got a job posting out to expand our staff. We're just two full-time people, me and Lisa, our administrative assistant, and we'll be hiring a director of annual giving. And so that application's been out for a couple of weeks and will close this Friday at midnight. And we've been attracting some really strong applicants. So I'm feeling really good about that. This, of course, will allow us to lean into not just our increasing the base of annual fundraising, but also, work more and more on major gifts. So, and then I just wanted to circle back to one thing just about the digital navigators, as you all were talking about. A lot of foundations fund that, digital navigators in Chicago in particular. And it's an example of one of the many things the library does that we're shifting towards funding that is at the sweet spot between what serves your mission and what donors like to fund. And it really is an example of how we've moved as a foundation that helps you just be able to do the basics, right? That was kind of the story as a muni library for many years, with the emphasis on programming, like materials so that your staff can do programming, to now, like, what does a donor think about when they think about a library? And it ties in what Stacy was talking about. You know, what is that emotional experience that people remember since their childhood? And so just a note that that's great that Digital Navigators it's no mistake that it's funded by a philanthropic source. I mean, you've got the learning, what was it called? The learning source paired up with AmeriCorps. It's no surprise to me knowing that this is something that's funded by philanthropy across the country. It's not that libraries can't allocate part of their budget to it. It's just that that's the sort of thing that really feels like a social cause that your community wants to donate to. So I'm glad to see that that's here. But that was all I need to say. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, so like, it's so cool, like how, like, the foundation could have had like a complete existential crisis. Like once the trust, once the district was created and like all the cool things that are happening right now, like really nimbly, like adapting to the change and like, thinking about all the strategic planning that's going on. Like, so it's amazing, all the work that's happening.
Well, thanks for being such a big part of it, Sylvia, on the board. That was what those of us who do this professionally knew. It's one thing to know it'll happen, then it's nice to see it start happening. But yes, you've absolutely shifted from a scarcity mindset to a mindset of, I'll call it abundance. I'll call it also opportunity. But you see this all over the country. I mean, why do people get to hospital foundations? You know, oh, you got a fancy Tebow pavilion. What do you mean? What do you mean you need more? CU Foundation, what do you mean? Well, here's what we mean. Like, this is a thriving concern that you can build on. I mean, it makes all kinds of sense. And the community, the donor community is waking up to this opportunity. It's very much the opposite of going away.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
really, it's fun. It's been fun just kind of seeing it happening,
Yeah.
Progressing. So.
Well, it's your good work that is making that possible. There you go, David and team.
Way to go, you guys. Thank
Yeah.
you. for the
Yeah.
1,000. Thank you. Yeah.
It's why we exist, literally.
We will have the Boulder Rights team back to talk to you guys as a group.
That sounds fun.
I think it's in May or something like that, but they are planning on coming to you and talk a little bit more about the program. It's an exciting program.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you all.
Okay, trustees matters. So the update on the bylaws, that minor changes.
Yeah, I'll just take it. So remember we talked about it last, like two meetings ago, and then we didn't quite have the right timing. So the changes are that the primary change is in the language about the annual meeting. And we said the May regular meeting of each year shall be designated as the annual meeting. And then at the annual meeting, the board officer shall be elected for the ensuing year, with terms beginning upon election. So that was our primary change. And then as the timing thing came up, we realized that we also needed to make the verbiage about how many days match up. So we matched calendar anywhere. We took out working and we made it calendar so that it was uniform throughout. And I think that's it.
Okay,
Pretty simple.
any discussion?
I would just ask that for the minutes, we, instead of calling it updates to board bylaws, it is probably consideration of bylaw changes and then just list the sections that we're changing. If we could do that in the minutes, because it's more than an update. We're actually voting.
Yeah, and I think we should just stick with the languages. If we were gonna do that, so the language in the actual bylaws themselves say revised or amended. So I think we want to use that same verbiage, because that's what we're doing. We're
Right,
replacing.
but yeah, but
Yeah.
instead of updates
Yeah.
to board bylaws, it's actually a vote. So, I mean, on our agenda, it says updates.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So,
So,
so just be revised.
Consideration of motion to approve.
Yeah.
Approve. the-
but just as long as the minutes reflect that we actually were voting, then
Yeah.
there wasn't just an update.
We're about to do that.
So I move approval of the proposed amendments to the bylaws as reflected by Sylvia in her presentation.
Any discussion? Courtney, we don't need like a written motion for this, do we? Just a verbal one, okay.
We didn't last time.
Okay, we didn't last year, okay. Thanks for that. All right, because I don't have one, that's why I was saying.
Right past.
All right, so it's been motioned and seconded, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, the motion carries. I'll take the next piece, the gun barrel library branch naming discussion. That was submitted by Sam Alina, and she works in the cafe. Anyway, I think, one thing, just talking to folks about this, I think we need a policy on naming because we don't have one. And, she brought up a bunch of points in there, about land acknowledgements and all that stuff. I think it's, David, you could talk a little bit more about that, but it's a bigger process than just sort of declaring that. My response to her was just gonna be that the board is gonna take it under consideration, or the board's taking it under consideration and looking, go ahead.
I think that's fine, but I also think like there's a process for how this happens, right? We have
Right.
like a committee and like this is a person who's an employee,
Right,
right? And I mean, I know they're like sending us this like as a public person, but like I feel like it's a little awkward that they're also an employee.
right.
Like there should be that like respect for the process and the chain of command that exists, that I feel like this letter sort of.
Yes, sir. Do you think, in my response to her, that it was gonna be pretty, bland, but do you think I should say, please use the internal process to bring these up? I'll do that. Or what do you think?
I mean, there's nothing that prevents an employee from commenting as a member of the public.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, Sylvia, I don't think we would give it the same weight we would give it if it were an official request from staff.
Right.
We view it differently, but I don't think we should admonish necessarily an employee for sharing their views as a
Oh,
private
no,
citizen.
not.
Okay,
No. I mean, not.
Yeah.
no, no,
Can't do that.
okay,
Yeah.
What this intrigued me. What they wrote, and when they
Mhm.
bought the land acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's attention. Gun Barrel's a name that is, it's a neighborhood you live in, but it's
A gun barrel.
a gun barrel, King Supers. And so we're in this whole new space in this new library. And we have an opportunity to do something here as a community to kind of be in a conversation around it, right? And we've got a branding process around the community or whatever. I got thinking about, like, Longmont went through this process and created the first sister city relationship with a reservation in the country with the Wind River. I thought, well, what if we engaged with the Northern Arapaho on how to name this? And I started looking into it. The only library on the Wind River Reservation was opened in 2021, and it's a free box.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought, wow, like maybe this is a bigger conversation more than tonight, or a committee to explore, like, how do we take the naming of this library, this idea that we're always in these land acknowledgements and we never act on them, and put something to it?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, and David and I actually had some conversations about this. I mean, again, like we have a committee that would be looking at that, and so I think they would have to be involved. Like, I don't think it should come from the board directing down. I think like we should respect that there is a committee that's whole purpose is to like consider these types of issues. I mean.
Sorry,
is there?
committee that does.
Yeah, there's a.
EDI committee.
EDI committee.
Oh, that,
Library.
okay.
Library.
Wasn't sure
In the library, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a staff. It's is it a volunteer or
They're paid for,
paid for?
so that was just a misunderstanding, I think, in the way in which the
Yeah,
Yeah.
emails, nobody volunteers for it. It's a rotating committee, so people serve 2 years. There are quite often more applicants than there are spots on the committee, and so, Sam Amina is a new member in 2025 of the committee, of the EI committee.
And I think that, I mean, land acknowledgements are very complicated. Like, so I mean, it's not like we could just sit here as a body and say, we should do this. Like, I think it's a very long process that needs to kind of be considered and undertaken. And so I just say, you know, as a Native person, who has some skepticism about land acknowledgements, I would just say that, you know, we should just kind of take it carefully, consider like who we would bring into a conversation, respect the processes that we have, and then also, you know, like, just be mindful that, you know, a lot of times land acknowledgements, they really just kind of come across as virtue signaling.
Right.
We can't really give back any land, and like, for me, like when somebody gives a land acknowledgement, I'm like, well, there's a way to fix that. Just give it back to us, you know, and no one's gonna do that. So, right, so like, how do you navigate around that? So it's not a little thing that we as a board could just come up with, you know, an answer to. So just.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting,
Yeah.
it. I'm just saying, I think I'm suggesting what you're saying, like, there
Yeah.
should be a process to it.
Yeah.
Like, we as a board can say, hey, let's have a process and think about, can we incorporate this? And should we rename this library something that represents something more that the community can be proud of, and there's a heritage to it that has a story behind it?
Yeah.
And how we go about that without stepping into a process that's already created. There's committees that do this inside a staff thing or whatever, but like, let's pause and say, let's think about this.
The thing I was gonna say, I mean, I think all the points made are good. I think there's multiple ways this could come to us. I mean, one, like we have the EDI council within staff. That's one way it could come to us. It could also come from members of the public, right? It's not that staff is the only ones with an interest in this sort of an issue. Like, it could be an ask from the public, but I do think we'd want to see more of an ask than maybe one individual. We'd want to see a slightly more concerted effort. I also think that we shouldn't necessarily limit ourselves to just thinking about the naming of the gun barrel branch, right? Like, if the goal here is to think about how to recognize Native contributions, we have conference rooms, we have the potential to spend money on art, we have the potential to like pay folks from that community to help make contributions to the library. I mean, there are many things we could think about doing here. We could think about those just because we want to as a board. We could think about them because the EDI committee brings something to us. We could think about them because we have folks showing up at public comment who are raising this issue.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say we want to think about it holistically. I would not have a policy on naming. That's probably more policy than we need. I think we want to allow some flexibility here, but I also don't think the name's the only thing we could be thinking about.
So maybe I have a different view, which is that I do think we need a naming policy that extends to many things, but a policy can help guide an organization. I've worked with Denver and Denver Public Schools on establishing policies related to naming of buildings so that, you know, the people know, you know, how to engage, how to be a part of a process, how people nominate or bring forward names. And then there's a whole vetting of that. Colorado History Museum gets involved because they have, you know, depth in, you know, some of the research on names and all that stuff. So I think a policy would serve us well. And having people involved, whether it's EDI committee or EDI and others from the community, you know, we've talked about how to involve the 36 applicants that, you know, in a process, you know, not all of them, of course, but, you know, to, you know, think about a way to involve community in a task force type committee could be a way to help move this forward in a serious way that, you know, engages people and gets us to a policy that the community embraces going forward, so that we're not just limited to geography names, you know, location names in our future.
Agnostic on that point, but I do, so do you see a first stop for this being the EDI
Yeah.
committee and engagement potentially with tribes and
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I do agree with Andy that at some point, a community process,
Yeah.
particularly with the residents of Gun Barrel, would be important.
Yeah.
And I think that sounds, I mean, I think this is something we really should think about and potentially do, because
Yeah.
there's a great opportunity to have a transparent process that kind of lifts up some things that the community should be thinking and talking about, and some members are. And also, who was it said Wind River has a, like maybe there's some relationship we could have down the road with a library
I
on a
can totally.
It's bigger than a.
on a reservation. Yeah, I think that's kind of exciting to me. I'm starting not to put more work on anybody's plate, but that is a really an opportunity for the citizens of our district to understand what our leadership means beyond the boundaries of our district. So
First Nations has sponsored the Gathering Film and Canyon Theater. It was the first time they'd done something like that. There were 60, 70 people came to it. That's another kind of relationship we could establish with Mike, that's another funding line.
Mhm.
I mean, they're just things that we could be doing here.
Well, I don't think what you said was much different from what I said.
Well, I was
but I'm
just on
saying
like, yeah, do we need a policy? That was.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
I really wanted, but I think that that it needs to be bigger than one community. It has to be bigger than just Gun Barrel, because we are a district and we have to embrace all the stakeholders of district.
I agree with I think we should have some sort of naming thing. I
just want to chime in that, I want to remind you, 2 of your branches are named after philanthropists. And so I'd like to encourage the naming conversation to be aware of the opportunities that the Boulder Library Foundation would have with your community as far as attracting donors. You did have some naming opportunities for philanthropy.
I mean, I think
Can I get Noble renamed?
Yeah.
How much?
Chris, just like, hey, this is like.
sell that car of yours.
The Fuqua Conference
Fuqua
got a ring to it.
bookshelf.
So what's our action here? Sylvia, are you suggesting we formally solicit the DEI committee to submit a recommendation?
I should probably jump in.
Yeah.
So, the naming and land acknowledgement were brought to the EDI committee. They didn't dismiss the idea, but felt they didn't have the capacity, and there was quite a lot of research that needed to go into the consideration. So they turned down the consideration, both of the naming change and the land acknowledgement. And so Sam Amina wrote this letter to you on that same day. And so that is another context which you don't really have to concern yourself with, but the EDI team did have a discussion. They had the discussion of the process that they would like to consider. They could, had done some reading on land acknowledgements, and I think fully knowing that we're signing a 5-year lease and there's not something that we can give back, took that into consideration, that not all land acknowledgements, but land acknowledgements that are not just a signal with no meaning, typically do cite these are all sovereign nations, right? Like they all have treaties with the United States government, which are, whether adhered to or not, in the memories of some people and in the history books, are broken treaties, right? And so those treaties are not gone. They just were broken, right? So, and the land was never given, it was taken. And people died, lots of people died, right? So it is not a simple, without the acknowledgement of the crimes that were committed and a commitment to reconcile, I think is the language that's used, to reconcile the ownership of the land. There's some reluctance around naming and acknowledgements. And so it is a complicated thing. And I think this EDI team took that into consideration when they decided that they did not want to embark upon it at this time. Now, that doesn't take away from Sam Amina's email. And I agree that, there are processes in place. Still, I don't want to restrict or chastise someone for writing directly to the board. I think that's fine. But it was brought. to the EDI committee and they chose not to take it up.
So I think it goes back to what is the action? Yeah, I think for Sam, we should tell her to maybe go back and, have more consideration with I don't know if that needs to come from me or from you. What do you think?
I mean, it sounds like the DI committee's already made a decision.
Well, it's not like they were still, they just didn't have, they didn't fully.
Sounds like I mean, my interpretation of what David just said is that the DI committee is not interested in taking this up between now and when we open the gun barrel branch.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
So, I mean, I would respond to Sam. I would thank them for I mean, I would treat their comment like any other member of the public and ignore the fact they're a library employee. So
Okay.
like if this were any other member of the public writing,
All right.
we'd thank them for their comment and tell them we've discussed it. We're taking it under consideration. If we wanted to actually move the needle here, I mean, and to Sylvia's point, I think the first step would be we would need to do some kind of actual tribal engagement and ask the question, what do they actually want? And it may not just be renaming the library, it may be let's
But
do
I mean, I think
art or something.
Yeah,
But that,
it's a lot.
but
Yeah.
actually, yeah,
Yeah,
but that kind of,
thing to engage, and it's either staff time or it's our time, and we'd have to decide how we want to handle that.
In the end, I mean, yeah, I think it's something that you probably will need to talk about at some point in the future. Consultation is not like we want this thing from you and then
Yeah.
tell us yes or no.
Yeah.
The answer may never be forthcoming, or it may just be no. But consultation involves a mutual kind of education. And I think it takes a lot of time. And it's not necessarily in the interest of sovereign nations to take up the issues of every local, state, or city
yeah,
government.
other stuff to do.
There are a lot of things to do.
Yeah.
And so we would have to you would have to approach it where you would seriously committed to doing some work. And I don't know, since we own no land, I don't know precisely what we'd have to find out. I don't know what you work in this.
I mean, I think we go
every
back to
day.
the
It's like,
EDI team if this is something that they feel is important to the district, or if we hear it from patrons or from,
Yeah, I think
or from the native community.
I don't want to just make it the EDI team's problem because, I mean, they represent staff and that has its own set of equities. I think this is a broader community concern than something we would just expect staff to solve for us.
Like, I don't think this is something we're gonna solve tonight. The answering Sam, I think you have an answer for that.
Yeah.
To me, I'm interested in this, is why I brought up the Longmont Sister City thing. It was a lot of work, and Brian Bagley's first got interested in it, and people support him, mostly Ray and Carmen and others. But as this new government entity that we are, in a community that has this history and a population that wants to feel like they're good guys, that maybe we should be thinking about, do we want to do something more along that line of the sister city relationship? Not saying that specifically, than something that is values, virtue signaling of a plaque that says something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that, and so that's just something I think maybe we take that up at the retreat and think a little bit about more.
That'd be a good place for it.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is right now, this is not a priority for tribes. We're just trying to get through whatever the government right now is throwing at us. So, I mean, honestly, nobody right now cares about what the name of gun control is. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And I still think we do need to remind Sam of there's a process. I don't like this idea. I don't want us to create a precedent where anytime someone is unhappy about a decision that the library makes, then, oh, I can just say I'm coming forward as a public citizen and then I can come to the board. I think that's a terrible precedent. I think we need to be careful about that.
That's, point well taken, but that's what people do.
Yeah, no, I know, but how much that happens, we can control how much that's allowed to happen. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure
I
we
don't,
can.
I think we can't, and also, I think this is not what's happening here, but like, if you play that out, we don't want it to be that like, if the library does make a decision that's bad, we want to make sure we're hearing about it.
Mhm.
So like, I don't want to go down a road where like, we're discouraging that because I mean, obviously right now, we don't have concerns about our leadership and we don't have concerns about what's happening at the library, leadership level, but if there ever were a problem, I wouldn't want them to feel like there was no avenue, right? So
Yeah, that's,
There's a chain of command, like, and we want to support them.
yes,
We
but I'm
want
just
to
saying,
support that.
I know what you're saying, but I also just don't, I think I don't want to make an example out of any of it, because I think that we don't know what would come down the pike
Yeah,
later.
no, I'm not saying make an example out of her. I'm just saying we do need to remind her. I would want like us to remind her about that there was a process. There is a process, and keep it at that. There doesn't need to be admonishment.
Yeah, I get it.
Like.
Anita?
Well, I was just thinking that if word got out that we were thinking about naming something after somebody,
Yeah.
I just think about, the Biff Film Festival, right? And the premiere of a documentary of Ruth Wright, environmental warrior. And some, in the platitudes, I mean, some people would proclaim that Ruth, has had such a significant impact on Boulder over anybody else in, Colorado. Any other elected official, just as, a law school student that researched, that, created the, momentum behind open space tax to height limitation to, and there's that crowd that would rally around the possibility of something being named in her honor. So that's why I think a policy would be good to have, or at least a process starting related to policy of naming, so that we have something that.
I think that we can put on the agenda
Yeah.
for later this year.
Yeah.
And
I still don't love that.
I'm not making this about the name.
Yeah.
I'm saying this has sparked this thought in my head.
About a relationship.
We ought to think about relationships.
Yeah.
We're
I get
about
that.
community. This is part of our community.
that.
This debate is out there.
Yeah.
And we have an opportunity to maybe do something that is more than the.
It's
purchasing.
meaningful, right?
That's,
Yeah.
that's.
I think that's where I'm at. Like, let's not make it about what we name the library. I said, if we want to think about this issue, let's think about it more holistically.
I think that's right.
That's the word, holistically. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's brought up a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting. It brings up a lot of points, right? Not just the naming, but a lot of things that are like, how do you balance this with
Yeah.
that? And I definitely want, as you said, like people to come to us and, with if there was something bad going on in the library, that they would come and share it. I mean, Sam, you probably have the most experience since you're on the.
Yeah, I mean, the difference I see, Sylvia, in someone, a member of staff coming to the board with an internal personnel related thing that is inappropriate. There is a chain of command.
Yeah.
This feels different to me. So.
Yeah.
And at the school board, you'd get some of both.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
And if you got personnel, you just say, there's a process, we trust the process.
Yeah.
Sylvia, to your point, I think the way we avoid encouraging folks to skip the chain of command is how we respond to this, right? Like, I think we should give this no more weight than any other member of the public. Like, if this had not come from Sam, but from random John Smith, member of the Boulder Library District, we would basically say, thank you for your comments.
We'll refer your idea to the REDI committee.
Right.
That's what we would have done.
Right.
Right.
I don't know that we would have said that. Because again, this
Well,
isn't a
to
staff
staff,
issue.
yeah.
We would have preferred it.
I think we would have,
We wouldn't have taken it on.
maybe.
Well, I agree. We maybe wouldn't have taken it up, but I think we would say, thank you for your comment. We've discussed it.
Yeah.
We have.
I mean, my whole thing is like, the name of the area is Gun Barrel, so like that,
And I think you met Rebecca. I know you've.
yeah.
The branch
Rebecca.
manager, and she's been in that community now for 4 or 5 months. I mean, one of the things that comes across most frequently, if you've never been there, there is a strong sense of identity about Gun Barrel. The residents of Gun Barrel have a strong, I mean, it's mostly, we're not Boulder, but it's not a simple matter of just like, it was just, they're not thinking of, I don't think they're thinking of the gun every day when they're saying like, we're from Gun Barrel. There's a definite sense of pride in that community.
Taxation without representation is what I used to say.
It's
Now we're getting our own services out there, so.
If the community wants to change its name, Stapleton went through that process and it's
Right.
Central Park. And it was a good process as far as
Yep.
I can tell.
Yeah,
And
okay.
the partner who founded my firm was actually part of that.
Oh,
Jim Martin Lando, so, yeah.
If Gun Barrel changes its name, we will happily take up the discussion of. this one.
I would just point it, I mean, this will be recorded online, so you can point any staff to this discussion to see what is the result of the, that.
Right, next.
Okay, sorry. So, we will look at a policy, I think.
And do you have-
You guys could take
Process.
a process or something.
This is not something we would direct, like, the staff.
Yes, well, that's what I'm directing.
Okay.
But I think it's gonna have to be later this
take-
year.
Yeah, let's-
Maybe, there's not,
Let's not direct them just yet.
okay.
Why?
Policies are for things that we do frequently enough that staff needs to be able to execute on them without our guidance. Naming happens rarely and is something that we as a board should be comfortable making one-off decisions on. I think a policy only serves to tie our hands when the 7 of us should be able to sit around once every 5 years when a naming discussion comes up and have this discussion and make a decision without tying our own hands with a policy.
I don't think so. I think there's too much scrutiny as it relates to this district and the formation and the governance and, we don't even own the buildings yet.
Well, let's like,
We can't
just get
really
a
point at
nod,
membership.
like who thinks we need a process?
Answering the.
Wait, well,
We can't be discussing these things till we own
Well, we do, we have the lease on.
because we need to,
The 5
it.
year.
In the lease, but when we own the things, I mean, that opens up the whole thing. We could rename them all. According to Chris, we could sell most of them off.
Would never laugh at that.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
get,
but
to gauge
we-
people's interest. Who believes we should do a process? And I'll just do that. Like, who wants the staff to take time to look at a process?
Process for what?
Naming
Oh.
things, could be anything, rooms, buildings. So, I mean, do you?
I mean, I do,
You do.
but.
Me too. I thought so
Clear
too,
about
but,
that.
but it sounds like the rest of us
Doesn't
do.
feel like enough of a priority. to me.
Okay, so we're not gonna do that. Right. All
And
right,
as long as we're not changing a name now, then I'm comfortable not having a policy.
okay. I just want, quickest way to put it to end is to vote on.
You have what you need to respond to Sam?
Yeah, I did.
So I have
Um,
one item, under board, are you done under?
I have
trustees
one
matters?
more,
Okay.
trustee, is the evaluation process for the director. And I was hoping,
To meet,
No, we don't need to do it. So last year, 2 people, there was like a sub.
wasn't it Sam and Jen?
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
So-
okay.
It was Sam.
So, I think we should probably at least appoint 2 people tonight. Because I think in April, so the process we followed last year, I remember, was appointed 2 people. They came up with, they sent out a questionnaire to all the trustees on David's performance. And then got those back, compiled them. And then they gave we gave in the executive session, a performance review, right? And then we compiled that into a list of goals that we put into his contract. And then,
Yeah, and I've worked on that and then the Rocky Mountain consulting firm, the
yeah, Rocky Mountain,
Employers Council, right? And I'd reached out to them and then
so you
we were
put,
remember we were gonna do like this job description thing and then we decided we didn't need to do that.
No, we didn't decide that. You just didn't give us a job description.
No,
But
but
the job description.
no, there was a job description in there.
There is.
I think we like.
we did,
we
but then
We
it.
tweaked it.
tweaked it a lot. That's right.
Well, then we decided to just go with the contract.
yeah, that's right.
So I wasn't
That's right.
expected to like.
Yeah, that
Okay.
makes sense. I remember. Okay.
We did write some goals, though.
Yeah, the goals are in his contract.
So this year we have criteria to evaluate David again.
I looked at them and we've done most of this stuff.
The committee last year, me and Jen recommended, I believe, this year, a more comprehensive process involving the staff, like a 360 of some sort.
That was in there and I don't know, do we have the infrastructure to do that?
Well,
Currently, but we're exploring it too, but
Yeah,
you could do it at
we could interview other staff.
Yeah, we could do the lightweight version of this. Like we go and sit down with 5 of David's. Do you have 5 directs? We could go sit down with 4 of David's directs and ask them.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I'd like that, to be honest.
Sometimes it's even broader. It's like, you know, but it's
But yeah, we could,
sometimes randomly, like
This might be the light.
community members,
So as my goal tonight, I thought was maybe appoint the 2 people who could come up with the process and present it at the next meeting.
present the process at the next meeting,
Yes,
not the actual evaluation.
no. And then between the next meeting and the May meeting, we would conduct the process. And then the May meeting, we would hold the yeah, well, if we would do the performance feedback, and then if there was any modifications to his contract based on goals for next year, because I think the questions were like, what'd you do okay this year? What'd you do wrong? What did you need improvement on? Sorry. And then like, what is the, goals for next year? Those were kind of the 3 categories.
Yeah, and whoever decides to do this or whoever is appointed, I have I think I have the linked, I think it's
Yeah,
the last one, the last version of it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I have I have last year's contract. I can send that to everyone or I can put it in. So who would like to volunteer? I kind of quickly asked Andy and Tom, but I would put that to other people. I know you're going out of town.
We're both out
It's
of,
probably gonna be too hard for you.
are you
Much
here
we-
for the April meeting?
So, and you're gonna be gone for the April
Probably
meeting.
not here for the April meeting. So I'm happy to be
I'll-
one of the people, but you shouldn't have both of us.
Yeah, if you're both out of town, Kara, will you do it? And then maybe I'll be the second person since you're gonna be out of town.
Okay, I mean, I'm happy to do
So-
it as well, but if you would like to do it, that's fine.
That's fine. Yeah, I think it's fine. And then,
I'll just come to your library cafe office hours sometime. We can hash this all out.
That's the best ever.
I mean, if anybody wants to stop me anything at
That's
the
a
library.
weekly. I interviewed the library board chair in his office. Oh, in the library cafe.
Yeah, so, I'm there almost every Friday, if I can be. Or at least one day a week, but it's unannounced. So, okay, so appointed us to the Kara and I, thank you. We'll get to work on that. It comes up quickly. Well, I'll ask you later. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just curious. So, and then I know that I can't remember what the time frame was, the board evaluations. Are we gonna do that after we do? Cause I think what
I think we should,
we did them remember we had 2 retreats last year. We had the one, like a mini one in March, and then we had like a bigger one in August.
mhm,
We did the board evaluations before the mini retreat, and then remember at the mini retreat, I think there was like some
discussion.
discussion about it.
I think we should do the,
We don't have to do it. I mean, it's too late to do that time frame,
Yeah.
but we probably need to figure out where to fit that in.
I think we do that, in ready for our August retreat.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Might be a long day.
What are the board evaluation?
Just like, what could we do? I think your value, yeah, for
Self-value,
ourselves,
Yeah.
self-evaluation. I'll have to pull that info up.
but it doesn't provide an outgoing member with any opportunity for feedback.
Do we want to give Sam a bunch of feedback on his performance as a board?
What Sam's back about the.
I can actually.
Makes more sense.
I mean, we could send it to Sam as well. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, it's just, I was thinking about the timing, because I think that's why it was March, because
yeah.
Johnny was.
Just thought we were gonna take Sam out after his last meeting and get him really drunk. And tell us.
And then looking at all those emails, then there's also the orientation for the new trustee that comes, like, well done.
Yeah, David does that.
Okay.
So, I missed this evaluation until you brought it up to me. And then I looked back because I was like, is it a bylaw requirement? I didn't, it's not a bylaw, it's not anything requirement. It was just, and it wasn't on the annual schedule. So that's why I missed it. Sorry.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think it was just,
done.
what's that?
I was just trying to remember when it was.
It was February and then we did it for the March
Okay.
retreat. So, but I think it's a good good process.
Yeah.
So a good thing to do, just to, is there, am I not giving you enough time to talk, or do you not feel heard or listened to, or that kind of stuff? Okay, sorry.
I remember. So I got a call from a member of Create Boulder, and she said that the North Boulder Art District is pursuing some state recognition from the state Colorado Creative Industries, CCI. And she wondered if we would, do a letter of support related to the North Boulder Art District becoming a designated district under the state.
Like a taxing district, or?
No, I think it's just like a funding,
Okay.
a state thing that,
Okay.
is sort of not like SCFD, but something that is broader than that.
Can they send us like information?
Yeah,
Like,
so
yeah,
she
packet
just,
or something?
yeah, and I just wanted to like bring that forward, just to see if anybody had heard anything more about that,
I
but
saw something about it in the paper, but
No, they had gone through the process of looking into a taxing district, but it was during the pandemic, and then they backed off the idea and didn't do it. This is something far short of that, but
yeah, but it like supports the, BMOCA possible expansion and all these other things.
okay, yeah,
In
I
that
think
space, but-
send it to us and we can,
And she happened to say that she went to the North Boulder Library today for the first time, and she said, there is not enough parking. Well, said park on Broadway. I know, exactly.
well, that's good. I mean, every time I've been there, I've had plenty, but okay, sorry, I'm not gonna address that individually. Okay, any other trustee matters?
Just real quick for folks' knowledge, and I referred this to Doug, the weekly sounds like they're doing an upcoming issue on kind of resiliency and resistance. They want to feature something in there about the library. They had a reporter come to me. I sent the reporter to Doug. I don't know if you've heard anything else.
I
but-
talked to her today,
Okay,
and
so
then she's gonna
perhaps
talk to
an
David,
article in the weekly coming down the pipe, and
and
yeah,
I,
perhaps some staff will.
Resilience and
on
resistance.
Friday, I think.
yeah, resilience and resistance. I basically kind of said what you said earlier, about community.
Yeah, I think we have a
And
good,
that-
we have a
and
good story.
and
to tell
that,
here, so.
And
They only told me resilience, Anita.
so I also did.
Didn't plug the resistance part of me.
The Boulder Region.
Well, and the
program,
library
which
will
is
speak to the
big.
resiliency side anyway, so like, I don't think we have to get into the resistance side. That is what they say the rest of the issue is covering though, so just be aware there's that angle too.
I said
Huh.
I talked about,
It's the weekly guy.
I talked about the
Not the
library, formation was, a group of women before they could even vote, and, they wanted a library so they didn't have to read in saloons. Isn't that what you told me, David? You can correct my story if I'm wrong.
I think that saloon bit adds a nice spark to it.
Very bold.
And then, I said, so, but anyway, and then we just talked about different programs. I plugged one book, one Boulder, and that kind of stuff. So,
Okay.
hopefully I didn't say anything. I didn't talk about any politicians. I said, we're supposed to be viewpoint neutral. I mean, we do curate content, but, this is the place to come and change your mind.
Hey, so related to our selection committee in that process, so did send a memo to the selection committee, and we only heard from Ashley thanking us for this, but haven't heard from anybody else.
Okay,
No, but
and Celia, we haven't made a date yet, or,
Yeah, I sent those out.
oh, okay, you got it. Cool, thank you.
there's a lot of,
A lot of hope.
yes,
Yeah, sorry.
just,
Okay, legal counsel, anything from,
No updates from us tonight.
okay. All right, well then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
thanks.
I thought this was gonna be an hour.
It's never an hour.